Hey, this is Jarret Lovell, Professor of Politics, Administration, and Justice at Cal State Fullerton, here to spend a few minutes talking to you about civil disobedience. If you've been listening to the news the past few weeks, been a lot of discussion about protests. The conversation is all over the map. We're hearing the words protest, we're hearing civil disobedience, we're hearing riots, we're hearing uprisings, we're hearing lootings. And it might be a little bit confusing trying to figure out, well, exactly what is civil disobedience and how does that fall within this lexicon of so many different types of protests. So, what I want to do in the next few minutes is give a very, very brief thumbnail of civil disobedience. So, viewers can try to decide if this is a strategy that they want to adopt and figure out exactly what works for them. So let me begin with a basic definition of civil disobedience because unfortunately the term is misused frequently. Civil disobedience is a protest strategy that has several elements. First, it is a deliberate violation of a law. It is a violation of a law that is performed in public. It is performed nonviolently with the purpose of educating or persuading the public. The individuals who engage in civil disobedience seek arrest. They want to get arrested. They don't hide their identity. And they do this because they are trying to use the criminal justice process as a platform to air their grievances and advance an attack on pre-existing law or policy or social practice. And so, what this means then is that not all protests are civil disobedience. Simply marching in the streets is not civil disobedience. You're not deliberately violating a law, unless, of course, you don't have a permit, but it wouldn't become civil disobedience unless the cops order you to disperse. And at that point, you publicly refuse to do so. And so, not all protest is civil disobedience. Not all illegal protest is civil disobedience. Individuals who break the window of a Starbucks or individuals who tag a slogan on a building and then when the police show up, they scatter, that is not civil disobedience. And so it's important to keep those concepts separate. An obvious question that people have is why does one need to break the law in a protest? We're hearing that a lot today as we see people breaking windows, engaging in looting, and all these other things. Well, again, civil disobedience does not necessarily entail breaking windows, but why break the law? Well, the answer is, first of all, civil disobedience should always, always, always be a last resort, right? If individuals never try to air their grievances through legitimate channels like courts, like voting, making meetings with city council members and local representatives, then they lose moral legitimacy because we have a social contract and people want us to try to use the legitimate channels for social change. But as I'm sure most of us know, and those of us who are paying attention to events in the news, we recognize that sometimes the system fails to deliver justice. Sometimes the system finds that laws which are immoral, they nevertheless defend by using all the machinations of government. This was certainly the case during segregation. This was certainly the case during slavery. And we see some remnants of that today. And so when we look at the violation of a law, the deliberate and open public violation of the law as a form of protest, we have to take a look at history. We have to remember that Blacks didn't vote themselves the Civil Rights Act. Women didn't vote themselves the right to vote. And so we have to recognize that throughout history, sometimes criminals, those who deliberately, openly, and publicly violate the law, sometimes criminals are the great moral innovators of history. Those are the words of sociologist and criminologist Emile Durkheim, who argued that individuals like Socrates, right, Jesus, and we could go further, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez, individuals who have deliberately violated the law to expose an injustice are often the same individuals who then become celebrated as the great moral innovators. Nelson Mandela served 27 plus years behind bars in South Africa in an attempt to end a racial segregation strategy known as apartheid. And so this individual who for 27 years was considered a criminal later emerged as a Nobel Peace Prize winner and the president of a democratic and free South Africa. We also have to recognize that sometimes there are no laws that can be changed. What law created poverty? What law created homelessness? Sometimes those are systems, whether it's a capitalist system, whether it's the corporate sector, whatever it might be. And so the quickest way to draw attention not to a single law, but a system of oppression is to violate the norms of that system. So the individual does it publicly to draw attention to the movement. They then want to get arrested. And when they get arrested, they use the platform to spread their message. So why nonviolence, right? The word civil implies civility, and it suggests that if you're going to violate the system, you should do so through strictly nonviolent means. Now, we could have a separate discussion about what entails nonviolence. Is property destruction violent? Is property destruction nonviolent? We're hearing on the news saying that all of this looting is violent, when actually no human being has been hurt physically. It's simply been property. So there's a lot of controversy over whether property destruction is violent. But the reason why civil disobedience should be strictly nonviolent, the answer could be found in the work of Gandhi. And Gandhi famously argued that the ends do not justify the means. And this is a take off of the Machiavellian formula, which is that the ends in politics do justify the means. Well, to understand what Gandhi is saying, we have to recognize what those terms suggest. Ends are our goals, our endpoint. What are we trying to achieve? Means are the methods by which we try to achieve our goal. We often hear that the ends justify the means. That is, as long as our goal is so good and so pure, we could do whatever we want, however terrible, in order to achieve that goal. The problem, Gandhi points out, is that none of us could predict the future. None of us know that we could actually reach our goal. And so if we justify doing terrible things in order to bring about something fantastic, but we fail in our efforts, the only thing we've created is misery, destruction, and devastation. This was certainly the case with the war in Iraq, where we were told that bringing democracy to Iraq is such a legitimate goal that we could do terrible things in order to achieve it. The other reason for nonviolence is we have to recognize that power is a relationship. Power is one person to command and another person to obey. And once we choose to disobey, the person who tries to command us is powerless. The people hold all the power because the people hold all of the resources, both human and natural. When we engage in nonviolence, when we disobey, police don't know how to react to that, and they often engage with the use of force, which creates the martyr. We've seen that throughout the news, where people who are the recipients of violence gain our sympathy, even if we're not sure exactly what their protest was about. If somebody is going to do civil disobedience, they must go through training. Do not take to the streets. This video is not a how-to. Look up organizations like the Ruckus Society. I believe it's RUCKUS. The Ruckus Society will give you all the information you need. It will tell you how to do training. You could sign up for classes on training. You will learn about affinity groups. You will learn about what the different legal ramifications are, and you'll learn about how to assess your goals and how to engage in the strict discipline. This is just a short snapshot. Hopefully, we'll have more discussions. We could discuss property destruction. We could discuss symbolic civil disobedience and direct action. But if you've got any questions, please send me an email. It's the letter J, LOV as in Victor, ELL, at fullerton.edu. And thanks so much for your interest.